Wisconsin committee spends their passionate volunteers' time on events such as we do a lot. Sports events are there, sports coaching is going on. We have mental health awareness, something like this we are doing. And then blood drives are there. We are trying to organize that. Of course, Chris and team does the camping trips, and then we also do volunteer recognition events. We wanted to make sure that we can engage the community more. That's our goal. But first of all, I would like to thank all the volunteers who participated in these events. And there's a lot of effort goes on in here. Sometimes you don't see it in these events, a lot of people don't come, but we are trying to integrate, and every time we are starting to build this more and more. So we are thinking this would be a better place to go there. So Wisconsin committee, let me talk about that. That's our committee. We are engaged in the community with organizing multiple events for connecting with the community more. That's our goal. So this is an event which we are starting to do to get there. We have completed many events like Volunteer Summit we did last fall. It was pretty good. We recognized people there when we did that. We also did few things like Hunger Task Force. And then we also did kids meditation. These wellness events we are trying to do, and we are trying to get there. But I'll tell you that this women event is a feather on our cap, because we started in a different way how we want to engage and get there. This hall itself is a big thing for us. This is the first time we are hosting an event. I'm thinking, Chris, here. For us, at least, for Wisconsin committee, this is the first event, so we are really thrilled about it to get there. I also wanted to take this moment to thank a few people. Priyanka here, who came in at the right time, who has been our leader for doing events with the Hunger Task Force. She has done that now 2 or 3 times. We are continuing to do that every month, and we are looking for volunteers there. On top of that, Ananya was a school student who did a kids meditation group event, and that was successful in January. That was very nice, and she was able to coordinate that. So thank you to Ananya as well for that event. We are planning a few more events. There are a few flyers that are there for you to look at. There is, of course, Avatar, so thank you, happening in Raymond. We are also planning parents event. We are planning a few more events. There are the flyers that are there for you to look at. But we also want to have Avatar, thank you, happening in Raymond. We are also planning parents event. We are planning a few more events. There are the flyers that are there for you to look at. But we also want to have Avatar, thank you, happening in Raymond. We are also planning parents event. Stating that, thank you for the package. But we also want to have stating that at this point, thank you for the package. But we also want to stating that at this point, thank you for the package. But we also want to
Yes. So our next speaker is going to be Melissa. Melissa is Testament, Resilience, Transformation, and Power. That was a loud voice. This may make for when I speak too. So she is raised in the shadow of addiction by an alcoholic parent. Melissa's journey took her through the heartbreak of 2 marriages torn apart by betrayal, yet from these straws she provoked a path of healing and empowerment, not just for herself, but for countless others across the globe. Today is a master coach certified by Tony Robinson and a beacon of hope for those facing their darkest moments. Melissa has built a successful and impactful business dedicated to helping individuals create lives they truly love. Her profound experience and victories over adversities made her a captivative and inspiring guest, offering invaluable insight and real-world wisdom to any podcast audience. Booking Melissa isn't just adding a guest, it's bringing a transformative host to your ready to uplift, inspire, and empower your listeners to navigate the journey of healing and self-discovery. Melissa has been a part of my life. She has been with me for over 10 years. And so I know her personally, and it has helped me with her coaching, and I really am excited to share her with you guys. So it's my personal sharing with you. So okay, take it over, Melissa.
Thank you, Supriya. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes. People in the back hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I just want to thank you for having me come into your space today and share this journey with you. I value the opportunity very much because it's part of my life calling is to try and add light and healing anywhere I go. So today's call, I'm going to be sharing a couple things with you that I start with all my clients with. And over the past 25 years of coaching, it's been very, very impactful, and it's a very quick and easy process that everyone can use to shift and make themselves more, either they can eliminate anxiety, they can eliminate depression, we can also use it because you guys are starting off with me, so I'm setting the stage for the other speakers. And what I'm going to share with you today is going to help you learn how to access the information and incorporate it more effectively. So a couple things you should know. I'm going to want you to be able to take notes. If you have a pen and paper, make sure you can access it, or your computer. The second thing is that I'm sharing a lot of information with you in a short window of time. I will do my best. If you have questions, please write them down and we'll address them at the end of the event. There will be time for Q&A at the end. And that way we don't break flow and I don't set the stage to make everybody else late. So are you guys okay with that? Put your hands up if that works for you so I can see the room and see how you guys are doing. Great. Okay. I'm going to do something I haven't done this far away from where you guys are, but I'm going to share my screen. And, oops, let me get back to that. Show you my slide deck. So that will help us a little bit. And then Supriya, you keep me on track if they can't see it in time?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see it okay?
Yeah, be good.
Fantastic. Okay. So why I start here is because as human beings, over the course of time, we have developed behaviors and processes and habits of thought, of how we learn, and how we show up in life. And when I got into coaching about 25 years ago, one of the biggest pieces that was very kind of surprising to me was just how much we have control over our emotions and how we show up in the world. But we haven't really been taught that from the beginning. We've been taught how to do all these different things. And what I'm going to share with you today is what I call success hacking, or the formula for success. And why we start here is because I have a belief, and so does Tony and the different people that have had influence over me, that foundationally we need to start with the right tools to access better information and to change habits and behaviors. And so the very successful people that are out there, Tony Robbins, Oprah, Ellen, Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, all these different individuals have learned how to hack success. And what I'm going to share with you is a tool that they've used for years, and it's been very, very powerful. The thing that's really wonderful about it is it's very simple to use, and it's very easy to get into your system. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to roll through these slides as quickly as I can, so I stay on time. This is going to be how we conquer success. We want to become success machines or successful people in our health, in our mindset, in our belief systems, in our relationships. And how I'm going to help you access that today is through the power of Pareto's Law. Now, some of you guys have heard about Tony Robbins. How many people in the room here know who Tony is? A couple of you, okay. So the big guy in the back was Tony Robbins, and Tony's been in coaching now for about 40 years, maybe closer, no, 40, 45 years, I think. And I had the pleasure of working with Tony for about 10 years. My son on the left worked for Tony for 16 years as one of Tony's top 3 executives, and the gentleman on the right is my brother. We all worked with Tony, and it was a crazy, awesome experience. And why me? Why am I here to share this with you? Is because I've spent the past 25 years deep diving into the power of the mind, the power of our emotions, and how we can create the best life possible regardless of what life throws at us. Supriya wasn't wrong in my bio, although it's like that, shorten that for you next time, Supriya. But I have gone through a long road in life. And so a lot of what I'm sharing with you are tools that have helped me create a beautiful life in the face of big adversity. I've had the unfortunate pleasure of having 2 husbands cheat on me prolifically. I was diagnosed with MS about 20 years ago. I've had to move multiple times based on my husband's shenanigans. We had a lot of financial trauma. And through it all, these tools kept me sane. Not only did they keep me sane, they helped me propel myself through the grief and the trauma of it all with grace and compassion. And so I believe that that's a really powerful tool that we all need to be able to access. So how this works is the law of Pareto, and it's a universal law that's been in effect for centuries, and it's the law of 80-20. And if any of you are in sales, or if any of you have sold anything and you've been on a sales team, you've probably heard it referred to that 20% of the people do 80% of the business. That's usually how this gets leveraged. It doesn't usually get explained why that's so important to us. But the people that have learned how to win and do life at high levels learned how to hack this process. And so, as human beings, one of the challenges we have is that we all have what we refer to in the personal development space as an emotional home. And I'm going to give you a minute to think about what are the top 3 emotions that you experience almost every day. And if you don't know what they are off the top of your head, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and think about it. For me, prior to coming into the personal development space, one of the number 1 emotions I would live through was anger, because life was hard. And anger kept me in motion. Anger kept me safe, because if I was angry, people stayed away, and I experienced less pain. So anger was an emotion that I lived with a lot. Frustration was one that I lived with a lot, and fear, because I grew up through a very tumultuous childhood, had a very tumultuous life, so I had a lot of fear in my energies in my space, because I had gone through life through survival. So do me a favor, take a minute, and write down the top 3 emotions you typically experience on a given day. It might be joy, it could be frustration, it could be irritation, it could be happiness, love. But think about the emotions that typically drive you when you get out of bed. Are you jumping out of bed thinking, oh my God, yes, another day? Or are you like, crap, I have to go to work right now? What emotions show up in your life pretty consistently? And it's usually about 3 we experience on the norm. We have access to about 200 emotions, but as human beings, we typically only use 12 consistently. And out of those 12, we rarely use more than 3 on the daily. So it's just important for us to try to start to look at how do we feel most often. Now, when we know that that's an emotional home. So when we look at life, one of the things that happens is we look through the lens of those 3 emotions, and we see life that way. If you were to change those lenses and put on different glasses, you could change the focus. What happens is we look through the lens of those 3 emotions, and we see life that way. If you were to change those lenses and put on different glasses, you could change the focus. What happens is we look through the lens of those 3 emotions, and we see life that way. If you were to change those lenses and put on different glasses, you could change the focus. What happens is we look through the lens of those 3 emotions at megahertz scale. Now, in the personal development space I work within, we do a lot of work around vibration, because all things on the planet can have a magnetic or megahertz vibration about where they vibrate at. And as human beings, we have what's called a torus field. And every one of us has about a 3 to 4 foot field around us. Kind of think of standing in a donut. Whenever we walk into a room or someone else comes in, there's an energy that usually precedes them. Even though we're not paying attention to it, we do recognize it's there. So when someone walks into the room, if they're angry, they don't have to say a word to you. You can feel it more often than not. And so I had an experience at Starbucks, to give you an example. There was a gentleman about 4 people up. It was packed as a typical Starbucks. And it was early in the morning, so people were anxious. They were ready. They were running late for work. And the guy 3 to 4 people up was vibrating in anger. He didn't say a word, but I knew enraged. And I knew that because of his Taurus field and also because his body language gave off the appearance of being angry. And so I could connect and feel that even though I had no conversation with him. That's how powerful our energy is. And as we go through life, in order to create a better life experience for ourselves and those around us, we want to start being aware of that energetic field and how we show up. Now, the people that learned how to make this hack and hack into success, they learned how to invert the laws of 80-20. Now, most of us grew up from the time we were born. Our parents raised us how to walk, how to crawl, how to walk, how to ride a bike, how to go to school, how to brush our teeth. Then we go to school and our teachers teach us how to do all the subjects. If we graduate from school, we may go into a job where our employers teach us, and we go to college and we learn another depth of learning there. The challenge with this, and where we struggle as human beings, is that we have overdeveloped the how muscle. So at the top of your page, I'd like you to write down 20% mechanics. And in quotes, put the word how. And then next to the how, draw a little emoji. I'm old enough to remember when there were smiley faces. Now they're emojis. Thank you, Japan. And I want you to just sit there for a second and recognize that most of what all of us have been taught to do from the moment we are born, and we do it with our own kids and they're going to do it with theirs, is we focus the majority of our life to this point on 100% the mechanics of how to do any one thing. How to go to work, how to succeed, how to get married, have a family, how to raise kids, how to do divorce, how to do illness. Our life has primarily been obsessively focused on the mechanics and the how of any one thing. Now, why this is a challenge for us is because we are out of the ratio for success. What life hackers, success hackers have discovered is that we only need to be focusing 20% on the mechanics of doing any one thing. But because we've been hardwired and taught, we have a neural pathway in our brain that drives us through how to do anything. Now, why this is a challenge is because when we are more than 20% in the how of doing any one thing, we have some things that take place chemically in our body. We also have some other things that show up for us as well. So how to diagnose and know when you are out of the formula for success, there are symptoms. I see them like little white flags that pop up over my head because I like visual images to help me access and connect to what's going on. So these are what some of the symptoms look like when you are out of the formula for success. And I want to encourage you to write these down. When we are out of the formula for success, we have some things that take place in our body that cause us to experience these different things. And one of them looks a lot like procrastination. Procrastination shows up when we are out of the formula for success, believe it or not. Self-doubt shows up. Anxiety. How many people in this room deal with anxiety? Don't be ashamed. I'd say 90% of you probably have experienced it, but you don't want to admit it. Anxiety is a very big issue in our society right now. We have more children on antidepressants than any time in history. We have 1-year-olds that are being medicated now with antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Rather than teaching them how to navigate their emotions, we're medicating heavily. And I've got a strong feeling about that. Stress, overwhelm, depression, paralysis by analysis for the analyticals and engineers and the doctors in the room. Paralysis by analysis, when we get locked in our head, that's what that little emoji is for. It's to show us that when we are more than 20% in how to diagnose, treat, fix, heal, or change somebody, we need to get out of our head, and I'm going to explain to you how to do that. Anger, self-sabotage, comparison. And if we stay in any of these negative emotions long enough, we ultimately end up with, am I even good enough to be alive, to be married, to do this job, to be a parent? We get down to that bottom level question that almost all human beings ultimately ask, am I even good enough? Now, when these are taking place, for a lot of us, we deal with these on a very regular basis. Most of these tend to drive how we show up in the world. If the economy goes sideways, we can get freaked out because of bills. We don't have enough money, so it creates anxiety, it creates paralysis by analysis or depression. Now, when those take place, when we are more than 20% in the how of any one thing, our bodies create a chemical called cortisol. And for any of you in the medical field, you know that cortisol is a challenging hormone, and originally it was only brought into our bodies in the beginning of time for the fight or flight hormone. It was only supposed to be a burst in our body. But when we revolutionized and industrialized as a human being and species, we started carrying cortisol at high levels in our bodies all the time. Now, why this matters to me is because cortisol, when we have cortisol floods, there's a lot of things that take place for us chemically. One being, we have a tendency to get disease. Cortisol at high levels causes high levels of autoimmune disease. I know for a fact this is how I got MS. I lived a very tumultuous life. I lived with a lot of cortisol in my body for the majority of my life. And by the time I turned 40, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. It's an autoimmune disease, and I now recognize that I helped create this by living in high levels of cortisol. For men, it causes men to maintain fat around the middle. That's what that donut is for. That's why the men get donuts. That belly that stays, that's an indication of high levels of cortisol. The other piece that's fascinating about it isn't just the fact that we have high levels of autoimmune disease, we get sicker, we have men that maintain fat around the middle. The bigger piece is that when we are in high states of cortisol, it locks up the right side of our brain. We lose access to the troubleshooting side that allows us to find solutions. So if you have a team of people and your staff is struggling to get things done and they're frustrated and they can't make any change happen, I'm willing to bet they're dealing with cortisol and they are not accessing the solution side to make it easier to find an answer. The other thing that takes place is when we lose the right side of our brain, we no longer have the visibility on how to get out of the problem. That's where paralysis by analysis will loop. And so when we see these signs, I want you to check in and go out, okay, that means that the flag is up, I'm out of the formula for success. when we want to shift to that who we need to become, we look at our physiology. Now, in the world that I worked with Tony in for a lot of years, one of the things that we learned is that we do certain behaviors that create emotional feelings. Now, remember the guy went at Starbucks. I knew he was angry because he was vibrating, he was that pissed. I saw it in his physiology, his body language. Now, for us, we want to shift from a disempowering mindset where we're paralyzed by analysis, or we're depressed, or we're in a state of anxiety or overwhelm. We know we need a better mindset to do something. Start with your physiology, your body language first. So I'm going to ask each of you guys to close your eyes for about 2 minutes. And I want you to think about a time when you hit the winning ball in soccer, you got the A in the stomach and B, you might have passed your medical degree test the first time. Think of a time when you did something big for you. You won a contest, you crushed it in sports, and I want you to think back to how it felt. Look at how you were sitting, standing. Were you jumping up and down, throwing your fist in the air? Were you clapping? Were you high-fiving, ready? And think about that physiology that you were feeling in the moment that you were in your zone. And when you have that feeling, put your hand upside down and think about it. If you can think of a time that you have a win like that, put your hand up. None of you? Okay, there's 1, 2. Keep thinking. If you can't think of a time that you won something or you did something big, think of somebody else that you watched win. Could be on TV, could have been a golf tournament, could have been a sporting event. But I want you to think about the physiology of the people that you were watching win. Okay, go ahead and come back into the room, guys, open your eyes. I want you to write down, those of you that found that moment, write down how you were standing or sitting underneath the word physiology. Write down what was going on in your body language when you won, when you had the big moment, when you were in the zone. Capture what your body was doing. And then, when you have that, I'm going to want you to move over to the left side of the triangle, which is where we're going to talk about what you were focused on. Were you focused on the people behind you, or were you focused on the goal in front of you? Were you focused on a solution? Were you focused on fixing something? Think about where your focus was. Because what we focus on, we create. This is a high-level quickie for you guys, but where your focus goes, energy flows. So for any of you that deal with high levels of anxiety or depression, I can tell you right now, it is largely impacted by what you put the majority of your focus on in your given day and in a given moment. And so one of the fastest ways to shift is to identify when you're in a good space, what were you focusing on? With Chance, when he was pissed off because he couldn't do his Legos, I would distract him and bring his focus over to something he did really well. And he could go to do that and then come back and have a different energy to fix the problem. So what were you focused on? That moment where you won, where you did something big, you passed the test, you got the job. Were you focused on the problem, or were you focused on the win? Were you focused on how you did the hard thing? And then once you determine what your focus is, you go over to the right, which is where we have language and meaning. Now, for us as human beings, it's what sets us apart as a species, is that we are meaning makers. What takes place in our life, we attach meaning to it. If you have a little boy at the grocery store, and mom turns the corner to go around the end of the aisle, and the little boy can't see her, within minutes, he can create a meaning that mommy abandoned him. We all do it. We all make meaning of the situations that have taken place in our life, which is great, except that for the majority of us, in that when we're in 80 to 100% of how to do anything, we've attached meaning to the negative emotions or the negative situations. And so as a result, our neural pathways focus on how can this go wrong, how am I going to get screwed, who's going to hurt me, and we attach a meaning to it. This always happens, I'm always wrong, I never win. And so we can either look at the right side of that coin, or we can go down the negative road. And so the reason I want to share this with you is so you can start choosing the emotions, the physiology, and focus that you want to have to create a better quality of life.
So on the right side of the triangle, when you were in that winning moment, were you yelling, I did it? Was it, I got this? I can do this? I crushed it? Think of the language that you say to yourself when you're in a good space or when you're winning. And we want to make those a mantra. We want to make them patterns of talk or thought or behavior that you say out loud, because when we say it, we get emotional feeling. When we put a word to something, we attach an emotion to it. That's why words and language are important to us. To give you a high-level example, and I'm going to wrap up here pretty quick, is when I was growing up, one of the things I would focus on, because life was very challenging, I was always looking for the worst case scenario. What else could go wrong? Who else is going to hurt me? How else is this going to blow me out of the water? And then my language, this is going to suck. It sucks, it all sucks, this sucks, and guess what? And so I had to learn to change what I focused on. I had to learn how to change what I would say to myself or say out loud, and I changed my physiology. Because here's the exciting part. When we win, whenever we won anything, it doesn't matter how old we were when we did it the first time, our body and our neural pathways remember. If you want to access your superpower to do things at the highest level, to access that best version of you, you can ask your brain to go back in and find it. And it will remind you where you did something big. And you get to bring that energy back into the moment. You can channel it today. So when we're working with our clients to help you find the best way to navigate and to learn as much as you can, it's not how am I going to get all this information. It's who do I need to be to hear it at the highest level? Who do I want to model that takes in information, absorbs it, and puts it in play? And then we name the identity. It can be, I have clients that named it after their grandmother who happened to be really good at something they wanted to be better at. I have clients who named it after superheroes. One guy who was a Fortune 100 owner of a mega company was struggling with getting out of bed. He was burned out. He named it Iron Man. And he would walk into his office like Iron Man would walk into his office. And he focused on what Iron Man would be focusing on, and he said the things that Iron Man would say. He got so into this, he had a poster created with Iron Man's body and his face superimposed on it, so whenever he walked into his office, he checked in and accessed the emotions he needed and wanted to win. And that's the power of learning how to do these processes. If we can start with who do I need to be, or who have I been and have done amazing things, or somebody else who can I model after, we can channel that and create a new and better way to deal with life and the circumstances that are facing us. And for those of you that are currently going to be speaking behind me, this will help you learn from them more quickly. Who do you need to be to get more information? Who have you been when you've learned a lot in a short amount of time? And then you show up that way. This is my information. If any of you have any questions after the whole event, or if you would like to have more information about coaching or what we do here, please let me know. That's my contact info. And say that if you come across somebody that's really struggling in life, I'd really like to be available to them. Just let me know that I'm always here. And I actually love what I do. So there. And any questions, stay tuned. So, Sabrina, I see on time?
Yeah. What show up as. And so I will change it over to Sonia. Just a brief introduction. Sonia is right here. Sonia is a certified life and weight loss coach. She is a doctor. But that she started her personal journey in February 2021. She went through a transformation, mind and body change, and lost 27 pounds and has maintained her weight loss. She is helping Desi women. The Desi is for Indians as a struggle, or I should say South Asian. Call it that Desi. We just don't, people who don't know what Desi means. Desi women professionals. Achieving their weight loss goals. She has helped dozens of women lose an average of 10 to 15 pounds through a weight loss program and keep it off. Through a process, you will learn tools that will not only help you lose weight, but can help you manage your mind. Sonia is also an infectious disease specialist.
a mother of two, three beautiful and wonderful wife to have Jody and husband. I'm very loud voice. So, thank you, Melissa, for that. Actually, the who, not how, I completely agree. I actually have that as something that I've done, who, not how. I think in life, as we progress, that is something that's very instrumental. Oh, you do want, okay, so I don't have to leave this, okay. So I wanted to talk about, so I just was reading a book by Robin Sharma, and he brought up 4 really important components of physical, or I would say, our well-being. And he talks about health set, soul set, and mindset. And with this empowerment of women, we're going to have speakers talk about the mindset, but I want to talk about health set. And from a health set perspective, what was very important for me and how it's changed me personally, I think when we wake up, as we get older, we have many goals. I'm, infectious disease doctor that I work during the day. And, how do we start feeling in these bodies? Now, it's not just about what we look like. And I know women struggle with that in terms of how we perceive ourselves. But I actually want to take it another level and say, how do we feel in this body? Now, I think it's very important. We go out, we buy a very expensive car, the best fuel in there. Well, this is the vehicle that's carrying us day in, day out. And why are we not putting in the best fuel available to us? Foods that are going to nourish us, foods that are going to bring us fuel, foods that are going to actually help us on many levels, and then give us results that we want to get, from our weight loss perspective. So, it's easy for us to kind of, come up with a diet, diets are very restricted, and say, hey, you know what, we all can have this for a month, and I promise you will all lose 10 to 15 pounds. But what happens after that? We gain it all back. So, I wanted to talk about a couple of tools. The big thing I want to bring, everybody's here, and I truly believe knowledge is power. But I promise you that all the things that we're talking about, you guys can go home and do it. We have access to 10,000 ways of losing weight, 10,000 ways of helping us with our mindset. The power is, we intellectually, we all know, doing it intellectually, and then implementation is superpower. So what I'd like to do is today, at least, whatever we learn is I want you guys to go home and just implement one thing. Obviously, there's going to be a component of things. But just decide to do one thing so that you can use this to get to the body that you want to be happy with. And also from a perspective of not getting chronic conditions. So people always ask me, so when I talk about how do we feel? So I'm just going to tell you about 2020, being an infectious disease doctor. So a lot of people know me in this group, personally, know me for about 20 years. I do not look like this. I look younger than I used to be. I'm almost going to be 49. 5 years ago, when I was 44, I was in a situation where I remember I was driving to work in the midst of COVID, and I was feeling sick to my stomach. My stomach was coming out of my pants. I refused to size up. I gained an additional 10 pounds. 3 children, so as I went through that process, I gained weight. And I was taking a medication called Dexlin, which is a proton pump inhibitor, which helps to suppress reflux, suppress acid, because I had horrible reflux. I had a hiatal hernia that was, causing me to get reflux, and so I couldn't eat half of the food, but then when I would eat it, I would gain weight, and so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, I'm an intelligent person, I'm a doctor, intellectually, I do know, what needs to be done. Why can't I do it? Well, that's when my journey started. And I lost 27 pounds, and actually, by the way, my weight is completely resolved. I'm on no medications. I haven't been, I'm in the best health I can ever be. I have a PA who's half my age, and he's 25. And I can go up and down flight of stairs, 4 flights of stairs without being short of breath.
I remember when I was 44, my mother-in-law, she was 50, had bypass, she had a joint surgery for her knees, and my left knee used to hurt. And I told my husband, I think I'm going to be like, when I get that, I'm going to be, surgery for my knee. Now, provided people don't know this about me, other people do me very personally because I can talk. So even though you come heavier, I freaking walk. But I remember how I felt. I did not feel good inside. So it's the added advantages when you do lose the weight, you start looking good, and people will start commenting on that. It doesn't really matter because you know what? I believe that the fact that I feel good now, that's all that matters. Someone can say you look good, that's great for that split second. But I'm sharing with somebody on a day-to-day basis, and that person is always there to give me that compliment. That might give me that one time, feeling good sensation that I heard from someone. But I'm going to tell you, the people that were sharing with us, that's going to be key. So I'm just going to that was my preface, but just to kind of talk a little bit about weight loss. So what are the 3 W's? Why do we eat? And that's a good question. What do we eat? And when do we eat? So why do we eat? I think that's we eat to live, right? Half of our world right now, we've gone into this, we actually live to eat. I see that time and time again. My passion also stems from the fact that I'm an infectious disease doctor. I have patients that are diabetic, or obese, and they're on multiple medications and they're coming in and they're losing their toe, and they lose their feet, and they lose their, it is bad because we literally have gone from living to live to eat. Everywhere we go, access to food, the types of food. However, we actually, we're here so that we have food to nourish us so we can carry on our lives. Now, what does food do? Food temporarily makes us feel better. And what I mean to say is like, for instance, if we didn't have, when we consume food, we actually get a dopamine hit. So let's say I eat a broccoli, okay? So when I'm really, really, really hungry and I eat broccoli, that desire to eat broccoli, obviously my stomach is growling, I'm hungry, but when I eat the broccoli, my brain's like, oh, you feel good. Now, you get a little bit of feel good dopamine hit. And that's why we go back and eat that food. Obviously, I'm not going to broccoli and we have like really favorite broccoli. But let me give you another extreme. When we eat chocolate cake, okay? Oh my goodness. So that dopamine hit is exponential. It's ecstasy. Literally, we're taking it in. It feels really, really good. It's giving you the dopamine hit. Your brain's like, what the heck is this? More. And that's what happens. So these foods that are very concentrated forms of pleasure, we want more of. But what I'm going to get back to is that, so why do we eat? We eat to live. What happens when we eat foods that don't give us that much dopamine hit, these broccoli or what have you? You don't really want to go back to it. But then now, the food industry has brought in processed foods, so therefore we want more of that. We want more of these so-called, by the way, full calories in, calories out, isn't it? By the way, exercise is not helping lose weight. And I will say it over and over again. Exercise has a multitude of benefits, endorphins, but it's literally what we put in our mouths. That's going to help us maintain our weight. So, what is the biggest vice out there? Flour and sugar. And this is the hardest part. Why? I just told you, if you take flour and sugar, you're going to get a huge dopamine hit. Why would you not want to go after that? And flour and sugar also causes overcome. And what does that mean? So when we take flour and sugar, so let's say I just ate a burrito, or let's come back to the chocolate cake. When we take the chocolate cake and have all the sugar or flour, it goes into our system. Our body doesn't know what to do with it. It's like, hey, it's flour and sugar, the brain's really happy, that's awesome, but your body's like, well, what do we do with it? You get a huge insulin spike, you store it. But your brain wants it again. You go after that flour and sugar. So you want another cake. So this actually causes over hunger. Now, what happens is when the glucose molecules condense down to glucose, and it goes into the bloodstream, and your insulin spikes, it really goes into storage. So what happens? You want more of it. Now, I promise you, we all ate broccoli, or we ate broccoli, like, vegetables that you guys enjoy, you know, you actually be satiated for longer periods of time. But the problem sugar, and what, you know, obviously we should have the thing that we should be eating for life nourishment. When I coach my clients, I really have them right. Food is fuel and food is for nourishment. That is the only reason we should be eating. Food we made celebratory, food we made for when something bad has happened, you know, but literally the reason we eat food is for life nourishment. It's for nourishment. And what should we eat? I literally say life nourishment. If it's in your pantry, now obviously my kids are like, Mom, you know, animals are dead, I get it. So you know what, they're not. So you know. I always say anything that sits on your counter that you know will get spoiled, you can put it in your mouth. Anything that sits in that pantry, any of those pots, drinks that you know you can serve for long periods of time, that is not what you want to be consuming. Now, I just want to break intermittent fasting, and you know, people always ask me, you lost weight, you lost all this weight, and I, you know, and someone is like, intermittent fasting. Now, it's something that I do and believe, but you have to get there. Okay, there's something called getting fat adapted and then sugar adapted. So let's talk about this. So when I'm eating flour and sugar, right, all the time, your body wants to have more flour and sugar. Now, if I tell you, oh, you know what, I lost weight by intermittent fasting, you're like, oh, let's pick that up. You know what? Let's go home and let's eat flour and sugar and then not eat for another 12 hours. You already hate me like there's no tomorrow, because you know what? During those 12 hours, you're going to be craving food, you're going to feel miserable. It is not fun. So when we start intermittent fasting, it's when we become fat adapted. So what does that mean? When you take blood sugar away from your diet, or we call it protocol, when you take that away, you become fat adapted. What that means is that your body can go to fat stores. So a lot of the time people tell me, I'm like, we got food on the body. You have to understand evolutionary. The reason we never had access to food all the time. This is something that we created, like this whole 5 times eating, that's also a myth, you know, we need to eat 5 times. That wasn't years ago. We didn't have to go out, you know, kill the animals, and agriculture industry came around. So point being is that we're not supposed to be eating all the time. We're supposed to give our bodies, you know, rest. I don't know if you guys have heard, you know, autophagy. Autophagy is a process where when you don't eat for more than 16 hours, your body actually undergoes cell remodeling. It's taking out the cells that you don't need. So, so if you did look at me and say, hey, intermittent fasting, remember that it's down the process. So what is stopping you, and what will help you lose the weight permanently? So just to kind of bring up, so we've got the human brain, which is prefrontal cortex, the brain right behind our forehead. We call it behind the frontal lobe, right behind that. And then we've got the primitive brain, which is the brain. Now, all of us, well, most of us live 95% in our primitive brain. We want to get instant gratification and so on and so forth. The prefrontal cortex, this is what makes us different from animals. Helps us make decisions. There's purpose in life, growth, evolution, delayed gratification. It's going to take a while to get to your results. You have to understand that. Primitive brain, on the other hand, you want it right now, spontaneous, avoid pain, and instant gratification. It is hard to shift from going from your primitive brain to your prefrontal cortex. It takes energy. It takes time. This is not a process that's going to happen in one day. But I promise you that if you follow this process, you will lose weight for the last time. So, you know, as soon as I made like the weight loss coach, this is kind of where I help myself get over that hump, and then it's moved into. So, quick The 6 steps, I just want to kind of touch on the 6 steps. I don't mind. Okay. So, you know, the how of the 501. So the who, not how. So what is the how of the 501? It's permanent labor for simple coaches tools, creating your process to lead endurance results. So, sorry, I'm moving. So I talked about the 6 steps, and I'm going to briefly go through them. You can actually also find them on my website as well. But first and foremost, let's write. And you know, it's interesting because Melissa, and that is actually a hack, right? So Melissa made us all write things down. The reason being is that when we write, we focus. And when we focus, we got 60,000 thoughts in our brain. Even right now, we all of us are 60,000 things at the same time in a day, I would say, but multiple thoughts at a time. So when you start writing, you actually focus. So that's the reason it's very important to write down things. Now, I have a client currently, and she's lost almost 17 pounds. And the first thing I remember, she's a physician, and she's like, I don't eat that much. I really don't. I kid you not, all of us in this room will say, I don't eat that. I don't know why I'm gaining weight. My writing down what we're doing. So in my process, I have a 6-month program. Literally the first 2-3 weeks, all I had to do is write down everything you put in your mouth. What types of food? It doesn't matter. We're not going to wait. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to literally write everything what we put in our mouth. But then we're going to obviously go through the process where now sometimes we feel like we have no time, and we all have time. By the way, each and every one of us has time. Because if we didn't have time, we wouldn't be alive, right? We all have time. So we need to get away from this, we don't have time. Kobe Bryant said that if you spend 18 minutes a day, 18 minutes a day for your self-development, for anything that you want to do, anything that you want to achieve, I promise you, in a year to 2 years, you would be efficient at that, whatever you want to do. But we can't even spend 18 minutes a day on this. I'm suggesting 18 minutes a day, you write what you want to eat. Sorry, you write what you're eating, and then we kind of look across here, we write what we should be eating. Drop it, flour and sugar. Now, when I say drop it, and everybody's like, you want to flour and sugar, no. I always say take care of your wellness now. We all are going, we're all aging. We're not going to be here forever, but I would like to be here in the last 30 years of my life, or I say it the last 50 years of my life. Well, I do not like medication. And there are things that we can't control. We can control chronic conditions. We can't control autoimmune diseases. We can't control cancers. Although we do know that when we are in healthier bodies, we can reduce the risk of those are things hypertension, diabetes, obesity, these are things that we can't. And so when we say drop it, for the first 8 weeks, yes, you do have to drop flour and sugar completely, then you bring it back. You bring it back and we call it joy eats. Because, people always say, oh, I have a cheat day. I'm like, well, you go out and cheat on your husband, so why are you cheating on yourself? So I don't call them cheat days, I call them joy eats. And so, you know what, that's what we bring back. So let's drop it, it's flour and sugar. And it's interesting because when you do drop flour and sugar, your cravings actually go down. Water. There's no doubt about it. I'm telling you, anything that's, thank you for bringing water, but our bodies made out of water, 2/3 of our body is made out of water. By the time you're thirsty, you're actually already dehydrated. Our cells, 70-80% of made up of water. We need to actually drink up to, they say our body weight, so I always say just kind of provision, I always say like 8 to 12 ounces of water, 8 to 12 ounces, 8 cups of 8 ounces of water in a day. So each cup is about 8 ounces. So you need 8 of those, okay? And the best time to do it is actually when you wake up in the morning, literally drink water right as you wake up. I have to brush my teeth, so I'm used to wake up, I just drink water. But I can't do that. But before you're eating, Drink water before you're eating, drink water half hour after consumption of food. But that's literally, I think, the only recommendation. I mean, personally, she wouldn't come out. That's a different conversation for a different day. But anyways, the importance of water. Extended, that was the intermittent fasting. You know, as I talked about, when you don't eat for 16 hours a day, you literally go to your body goes to autophagy. And actually, studies have shown you will actually have more energy and more clarity in the time when we're not consuming food. But again, flour and sugar during that time. So when you're eating foods that have high fat content, have high protein content, and when we talk about, flour and sugar, you notice, I didn't say carbohydrates. The reason is that we have vegetables are carbohydrates. There are 100. Literally, it's just the one carbohydrate that we have flour and sugar. But extending it is in terms of intermittent fasting. And it's planning. So this is, I'm actually going to talk, so let's plan it and make it. So these is, I want to pair these two together. So as a certified life coach, I went through Brooke Castillo. She has a book called Life. And her big thing is something called a thought model. So a thought model is, we've got circumstance, and this you can write down. Circumstance, below that I would write thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. Okay. So we actually think our circumstances create our results. That's not true. Actually, our thoughts that create our results. Because thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions, and action creates results. Now, what does that mean? So let's just say the temperature up there is 53 degrees, right? And I was talking to Edward before we started. Now, for me, 53 degrees is like really cold. That's a thought I have. So therefore, my feeling is I'm cold, right? And my actions, I'm going to go pick up a sweater and wear that, and my result is not comfortable. Now, I can, on the other hand, be like, so what are you from Wisconsin, 53 degrees, this is like summer for us. So, you know what, he's going to be like, I'm pitching off my stuff. So it's not the circumstance. It's the circumstance is 53 degrees from him, 53 degrees from me. So it's actually our thoughts that create our results. Now, if you have, I always say that, let's say you have a conversation with your son, and he says something, or your daughters, or what have you, she brought up a good point. We are meaning-making machines. Anything someone says, we try to make a meaning of, but it's interesting because I promise you, let's say, someone has a line, like, Sonia, you don't look good today, right? In your blue blouse. Now, I can make that to mean, now, depending. If I wanted to make that mean, well, I guess maybe I don't look good, and I feel stressed, and I'm unhappy, and however, I'd be like, I don't care. But I spent like $50 on it, so I know it looks good on me. So that circumstance was neutral. That statement was made that you don't look good in this blouse, but it's what I needed to mean. And someone else might say, when they hear that statement, that's not even a true statement because it's not true. Maybe you do or do not look good. The point being is it's our thoughts that create our results. So everything we do in our life is literally combined with thoughts, feelings, and actions. When you have a thought in your brain, there's neurotransmitters in our brain that go down into our body, so from neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and they connect to our body through called neuropeptides. And what do we have in our body? We have organs, and what do they secrete? Hormones. And from there, we get those feelings. So feelings are this interconnection between what our thoughts and our bodies think. Bodies do. But nobody goes back. So when we talk about anxiety today, right? That is a feeling. Now, what is the thought will happen? So when you wake up in the morning, and as mothers, I'm sure kids have to get to school, I gotta get to work, and my husband's not helping me, and so on and so forth. Those are all the thoughts. Of course it's going to cause anxiety. I mean, late the other day, I woke up and I was like, well, you know what, I could get to school late today, and that's okay. And she can't be exactly my system. I don't know how I thought that, but I truly did it. And not the thing we just, that every day, that's one thing. But, it was once it was raining, and someone wasn't feeling well, and, we like to catastrophize things.
testified and things, and it was okay, child got to school late, everything was hunky-dory. The point being is that our thoughts create our feelings and our actions. And so what happens when you do have this, oh my gosh, kids are gonna get late, and they're walking outside, and you're annoyed, and you're frustrated, so that's your feeling, your frustration. Your actions are, you're gonna be yelling at your child, your husband you're gonna be screaming at, and the result is, yes, everybody gets out that door. Because literally, you did this whole thing, not coming from that place of frustration. Versus having a thought that, okay, to relate. Again, this is a temporary thing, I'm not suggesting relate, but point B is that you immediately change the physiology in your body. And planning, we actually, so I always say, my clients always have a hard time. They're like, well, it's not something to plan food. Now, when we go on a trip, so we just say, well, maybe some people might want to do that, but let's say you're going to Italy, you're not going to do that, well, we're just going to show up in Italy. What are you going to do? You're going to plan your plane ride, plan where you're going to be, in the hotel, all the effort we take to get to Italy or wherever you want to go. You're not food maps. And I promise you, in the beginning, it comes when we're putting down what we need to eat and so on and so forth. But now, I write it every single day. It takes me literally 30 seconds to write down what I want to eat. And then you commit to that. You commit to what you're going to say. I think the biggest thing is that, like, for instance, like, let's pick Raka, I invited you over for lunch, right? You're going to show up 100%, right? Because I invited you. So I'm going to do that for myself. I just told myself I'm going to be eating so and so. But then I don't show up when the food comes, when I'm opening that fridge and I see, I don't know, whatever. I'm getting the books right now. Yeah, and so I've committed myself today to eat this sort of better. So let's just show up for ourselves. I think that's the most important thing. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Basically, implementation is key. Just take one of these tools, let's think it, drop it, plan it, drink it, extend it, and apply it in your life. And, literally, we can live healthy, long lives. I'm not going to talk about epigenetics and biohacking and stuff like that. As women, I'm going to tell you side effect is, obviously you get to, I say there's no drama in my closet anymore. I walk in and I just get to wear whatever I want to. And I know I feel good in it and I feel well. But I think the most important thing is that let's learn to live happy lives. Thank you.
Take a little break, like 5 minutes break, before we set up our event. There is not this there is food, so choose what you want to eat. There is coffee and there is tea. So there's the most, so they are going to go safe. So there's
It's a test. After she talks about the food, it's like, all right, what kind of decisions are you going to make? What is joy eating?
for setting up this wonderful event and all the volunteers. My name is Ajay Bhargava. I'm a clinical psychologist with psychiatric consultants and therapists in downtown Milwaukee. I've been doing psychotherapy for about 15 years in a full-time practice, and I have a lot of wisdom and experience of being working with thousands of people during my time in therapy. One of the things I want to do with this presentation is maybe bring the perspective of a psychologist or a therapist and some of the most important things I've learned about mental health and what affects people and what people are wanting and looking for. It's something about. One of the challenges is when we're getting 15 minutes to speak, it's hard to capture 15 years of experience and summarize everything, but it kind of left this meeting with a few people to think about. I think it'd be a little bit eye-opening, and I found them to be eye-opening as I developed my career and experience. So I don't think you share some of those concepts with you, and just maybe something your relationships and your own mental health. Okay? So 90% of the work that I do has to do with helping people who have anxiety and depression. Certainly in the mental health field, there's a lot of things we deal with. We deal with eating disorders, gambling problems, alcohol, drugs, other challenges. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to be mainly focusing on depression and anxiety, because those are the two of the most common things that come up when it comes to mental health challenges. I wasn't sure how much familiarity everybody has with anxiety or depression, so I'll just maybe provide a little bit of basic education first. Anxiety tends to present itself in different ways. Sometimes people have what's called generalized anxiety, which consists of excessive worry. We're constantly afraid of something going wrong, something bad happening, some catastrophic outcome, some unfortunate circumstance. And sometimes our anxiety can also present itself in physical symptoms. We can have what are called panic attacks, where things in our body are, our heart might be racing, we might be sweating, we might be shaking, we're trembling, we might feel tightness in our knees and legs, we might vomit, feel nauseous, and experience all kinds of physical discomfort that can really build up and cause a lot of fear. In fact, a lot of people think they're having a heart attack when they're having a panic attack, and they end up going to the ER. They go through the EKG and everything, and they're told, no, this was not a heart attack, this was a panic attack. So it can be something that's mental in terms of the worrying. It could be something that's physical in terms of all the reactions you have in your body. And anxiety that's very common is what's called social anxiety. This has to do with our fear of other people and what people think of us. We are afraid that we may not seem intelligent enough to other people. We're afraid that we may say something dumb. Maybe we don't trust our ability to carry a conversation. Maybe you have to come up and speak in front of a bunch of strangers and you're nervous about whether or not people are going to like you. Maybe you're the only speaker that didn't bring slides to the presentation. You're feeling a little bit embarrassed. This is social. It can be very crippling, very debilitating. One concept to be aware of is that wherever there's anxiety, there's often avoidance. They're kind of like best friends, okay? Things that make us anxious, we sometimes promise to ourselves that I'm never going to put myself in this position again. We start avoiding things. We may avoid professional challenges. We may avoid things in relationships. We may avoid situations like going on a plane. And the good news with avoidance, okay, is that you don't get to feel anxious. You don't get to feel afraid. But there's always the downside, which is out on. We look on things that could be pleasurable, could bring us success, could bring us relationship fulfillment. And then that could result in depression. Okay? So if you find yourself falling into the trap of avoiding things, and the avoidance is starting to cause some kind of emotional harm or loss of satisfaction in your life, that's a little bit of a way of sign that maybe it's time to get some help. Okay, so just something to think about. In terms of depression, some of the symptoms of depression include kind of a low or sad mood, okay? That could involve sometimes tearfulness, or feeling on the verge of tears, or maybe a full-blown cry. Also kind of a form of irritability. You can feel uptight, irritable, on edge. Sometimes people will even say, I just feel kind of blah. I don't really feel anything. Just feel kind of numb. Sometimes people, they don't experience joy or pleasure, especially things that they normally enjoy. When that feeling starts to dissipate and you're no longer enjoying things, that could be one of the symptoms of depression. Sometimes people have thoughts about suicide in their life. Okay? That's a very serious concern. Sometimes even just thoughts about that. People might say things like, it's not that I'm going to harm myself, kill myself. If a truck hit me, it would be the worst thing in the world. Okay? So even thoughts about that could be a concern. People experience sleep disturbance. They might oversleep. They might not want to get up. They want to stay in bed all day. Sometimes it's the opposite. People have insomnia. They have a lot of trouble falling asleep. They're waking up in the night. They're waking up way earlier than they want. They can't go back to sleep. And then their whole day is ruined because of low energy. People lower. People can experience sometimes feelings of guilt. They can feel worthless. They can feel useless. They can feel more withdrawn and abandoned of other people. And they find opportunities to be with friends or colleagues or participate in things. Isolate themselves more, which is never a healthy thing. It could be weight gain, weight loss, and appetite disturbance. So these are just some of the symptoms that indicate that one might be going through depression. Okay? I notice we have both men and women here in the audience, and I know the focus was supposed to be on women's wellness. Anxiety and depression is especially more prevalent for women. They are at much higher risk of developing these conditions. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And I know I'm going to be using a lot of traditional stereotypes, and I know the world is changing. But in most situations, it's usually the woman who has a lot more responsibility. Okay? You have to be a parent, and most often parenting than the husband will. You have to do more caretaking responsibilities, whether it's for their kids, themselves, their spouse, maybe Asian parents. And they tend to take on a bigger share of that responsibility. They have to manage a household, and of course, traditionally, women have always taken on a bigger share of the work. And they also have to perform in their jobs and meet expectations in their career and keep their employer, their boss happy. So two things can happen. Number one, you can feel overwhelmed with the number of things you have to do, or you can feel like you're failing and falling short. Okay? So between these two challenges, women are at a much higher risk for experiencing anxiety and depression. They can also be more at risk for other conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder. They can have issues with eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia. Women actually have a much higher risk for suicide attempts. They attempt suicide almost 3 times as much as men do. That's the funny thing though is men are more successful at it. They tend to use more dangerous or lethal means, and they're more likely to execute suicide, but a woman is more likely to attempt. Okay, so women's mental health is a very important subject. More women are likely to go see a psychiatrist, a therapist, a psychologist. Part of the reason is they're more comfortable talking. That's one of the advantages that women have, is they're more open about sharing their feelings. They'll confide more with their friends, with the professional. So that's one thing I'll give them credit for, is they're more open. They have other challenges, body image. They're worried about how they'll be perceived, how appealing they're going to be, how they're going to be judged. They'll feel competitive with other women sometimes. Sometimes there may be cultural expectations depending on how you were raised. In some cultures, it's all about being raised to please a man and meet their expectations, and that's what, especially a lot of the South Asian culture, where you're socialized to be acceptable to them and their families, okay? There's also more history of sexual abuse, challenges with domestic violence. For all these reasons, even things like postpartum depression, menopause, prenuptial syndrome, all these hormonal issues also can contribute to challenges with depression and anxiety. So that's why it's very important to have some awareness of what are some of the warning signs that you might want to get some help and treatment. Okay? In terms of just, all of us have pretty good resiliency. We all face some setbacks. We face some disappointments. We have things, circumstances that are challenging. And most of us do a pretty good job of overcoming it, finding solutions, and managing on our own without having to go see a psychologist or psychiatrist. Let's say, for example, you're disappointed that you didn't get a promotion that you wanted and you worked really hard. Most people are not going to go into clinical depression or have really bad anxiety. They might communicate with their boss and find out why they fell short. Or they may choose to change a job, or they may work harder and try to get a promotion. So for the most part, people are really, really good. What happens, though, is when people go through something more serious, you diagnosed with clinical depression or significant anxiety, this is when they're not able to overcome these challenges, these disappointments, these tough circumstances on their own. Okay? A lot of times it'll manifest in some of the depressive symptoms that I've talked about. It could manifest itself as having nightmares, bad dreams, resentment, things like that. And when this persists for a long time, it starts to impair your relationships, your health, your focus, your functioning. This is usually typically when somebody will say, okay, I'm not able to figure this out on my own. Maybe the things that I've done in the past to help me through challenges haven't worked, and now it's time to see a professional. Okay? So I'm going to just share some of my interesting insights and learning experiences from all the years of therapy I've been doing. And these are really the takeaways that I think I want to share with the group today. In my experience, when somebody is coming in for mental health concerns, anxiety or depression, it's not just the circumstances, the disappointing thing that happened, the things that are happening that have caused them to come in. It's usually one of two things, and you may want to know this. Okay? Number one is whatever the triggering circumstances, in my experience, it often taps into a much deeper issue. It should be a wake-up. Now, this is something beyond just the disappointment I'm going through about the circumstance, but maybe this represents something deeper. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example. Remember I was talking about somebody might be disappointed that they didn't get a promotion in their job. So somebody who doesn't go through depression, they'll just maybe feel sad, frustrated for a while, and then they'll kind of recover and move on. But for somebody who goes through more depression, maybe it's symbolic of a deeper issue. Okay? For example, maybe that person doesn't feel good enough. Maybe they haven't felt good enough in a lot of different things in their life. Not just about the job they didn't get, the promotion they didn't get. But maybe this is part of a lifelong pattern or a lifelong feeling. So if you find yourself feeling depressed for an extended period, one of the things to think about is, have I felt this way before? Is this a familiar feeling? This is a very typical question to ask all my clients. Is this something that is there something about the situation that feels familiar to me? And my suggestion is to take the time to think about what else have you felt this way before? Okay? Because if you experience something once, it's probably not going to take you into depression. But if you are feeling very depressed or even anxious, there's some chance, pretty good chance, that this is something representative of a lifelong. That's when it starts to wear on us. That's when we start to feel down about it. Because again, I'm not feeling good. Okay? Another example, let's say you're angry at your boss. You're being asked to work on a project and you're having to put in more hours, and maybe you're losing time with your family and you're tired. Okay? Now, of course, that's frustrating. something like that may not take you into anxiety or depression. But let's say you have a history of having difficulty saying no to people. That's what the deeper issue is. Maybe you grew up in a family where your parents were very aggressive and you didn't make any choices. Saying no is unacceptable. Maybe you let people push you around in your life. And you're afraid to be assertive, or you're afraid to stand up for yourself. And now you're facing the same exact challenge again in your current job. Okay? So this is an example of how circumstances themselves, sometimes there's a deeper pattern or a deeper challenge that somebody's struggling with. Okay? So my advice to all of you is if you ever find yourself feeling depressed, ask yourself, is there something familiar, like I said earlier, something familiar, am I going through something again? And I think that can help you work through the problem better, because then you're really understanding what is the issue I need to address. Okay? If you just make it about trying to get out of working on this project, okay, maybe you fix that problem, and then the next time it comes up again, you have to be assertive, or you have to, you don't feel good enough, the same problem is going to reoccur. Okay? So this is my encouragement to all of you. Always think, is there some deeper issue that these circumstances are tapping into that I need to think about more and understand better? Okay? The other thing that I found most fascinating, the second, this is point number 2. The first one was the deeper issue. The second thing, and this is really fascinating to me as a psychologist, I still am amazed by this, is that a lot of times when people go through depression and anxiety, it's not some circumstance that's going on. It's some disappointment in their support system. Okay? You will be shocked how much people can be more affected by feeling let down by somebody they turn to for support than the actual circumstances that are bothering them. It's a really fascinating observation I've had. I could lose my job. I could get fired from my job. My wife could divorce me. My stocks and my life savings may go belly up in the economy. And my house could burn down. These are all difficult things to go through. We had a really bad week. But if I turn to a friend of mine for support, and in some way he lets me down, there's a chance I can go into depression more because my support system fails me, rather than all the bad circumstances. And this is something so mind-blowing that I'd love to write a book about this. It's just that fascinating to me. People are very sensitive when they're going through something emotional, and they turn to somebody. Okay? When they turn to somebody, a lot of things can go wrong. Understood? Sometimes they might be told to think differently. They can be told, hey, you shouldn't be upset by that, or other people have it worse, or things like this happen in life. We're told all kinds of things. Sometimes we're told what to do. Well, you should do this, or try that. We're told how to fix the problem. Sometimes our concerns are dismissed or minimized. We're told, well, that's not something you should be that upset about. It's not that bad. All these messages that people are trying their best to help us. Sometimes it can make us feel more disappointed or lonely. Sometimes we can feel blamed. If I lose my job, somebody says, well, if you would have worked weekends like they wanted you to, maybe you would have kept your job. Okay? So sometimes there's a lack of acknowledgement or validation about it. So in my experience, like I said, the two biggest things that can lead to depression and anxiety is disappointment in your support system, and when the circumstances that are upsetting you happen. So these are things to think about if you're going through depression and anxiety, maybe help you understand a little bit better what the root of the problem might be. Okay? In terms of other things, in my clinical experience, I had to kind of take all the cases I work with and kind of put them into different buckets, I would say. I think there are two main categories of issues that are essential to think about. And Sonia already talked about one of them. One of them has to do with your thoughts and your beliefs and how much of a role that plays in mental health. And the second thing has to do with relationship experiences and how much that affects your mental health. So I'm going to speak a little bit about both of these things because I think these are two of the core things that affect people's mental health. First of all, as Sonia already mentioned, and our first speaker, Melissa, mentioned too, your thoughts are very, very, very powerful. The assumptions you make, the interpretations you make, what things mean to you, okay? The conclusions that you draw, these are the important things that affect your emotions and your behavior. So we're all faced with circumstances, and I'm going to give you just a hypothetical example. Let's say you have a husband, and every night this week he's been coming home about 2 hours late. Okay? So that's the situation. This is the fourth night in a row, you come home 2 hours late. Now, if your automatic belief is that his boss is taking advantage of him and overworking him, and your emotion is going to be you're going to feel resentful or angry or maybe upset with the boss. Okay? If your assumption is that my husband cares more about his work than he cares about me, right? You might feel insecure, you might feel jealous, you might feel hurt. If your assumption is, wow, my husband is very important, I'm so honored that he got selected for this special project, and I'm so proud of him and all the hard work he's doing, and he deserves this honor. You're going to feel proud, you're going to feel lucky to be married to him, right? The fourth example is if you think he's cheating on you, he's out with another woman, he's lying to you, you're going to feel scorned, you're going to feel insecure, maybe scared, maybe you're going to feel violent, who knows, right? So that's the point. In all four examples I gave, the circumstances were the same. Like Sonia mentioned, it's how you think about it. Okay? So if you ever find yourself going through anxiety or depression, I ask people to do this. Number one, think about your assumption. What is the thought you're having about the situation that may be causing the depression or the anxiety? And one of the things we know from a field called cognitive psychology is that there are several common thinking errors that occur when people, in the way they think or interpret things. And I'm not going to go through all of them. There are a few of them that I think are especially interesting that I'd like to point out. Okay? One of them is called overgeneralization. This is when we assume that an experience from one event will automatically translate to all other events. For example, let's say you tried out for competition and you fell short. Now you just assume you're going to fail in all other competitions. Okay? Sometimes we fall into what's called black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking. Okay? So we see things as either all good or all bad. Things are either perfect or we've totally failed. Let's say you're hosting people for dinner, and one of the desserts you cook tastes a little bit too sweet. Somebody with all or nothing thinking will assume that the entire gathering was a failure, and that their guests are not going to enjoy them and want to come again. Okay? We fail to see the middle ground. Yeah, this was a great evening. I wish my cake had a little bit of sugar in it, but it was a fun night. Okay? We catastrophize. We think of the worst outcome. You get a text message from your boss on Sunday evening saying, on Monday morning, I want to see you in my office at 8 a.m. And the first thought is, uh-oh, I'm going to get laid off, I'm going to get fired. Catastrophic. Emotional reasoning. This happens when we just feel a certain way, and because we feel that way, we think back to the You wake up in the morning, you're feeling a little bit anxious, you just assume something terrible is going to happen. Another one is sometimes we draw conclusions without any evidence. So, for example, your best friend hasn't returned your past few phone calls, and you just assume that they're maybe upset with you or angry with you, even though you're aware that the last few times you saw that nothing bad happened or nothing controversial. Okay? Another one is called inconsistent standards. This is when you judge yourself much more harshly than others would judge you for the exact same thing. I'm going to give you an example. How many of you are enjoying my talk today? Raise your hand. Thank you very much, right? I'm thinking, man, I didn't bring any slides today. Maybe the audience is not going to enjoy just listening to me and having nothing to look at. And I'm being pretty hard on myself. But you guys all seem to be enjoying this, so thank you very much. Okay? So the point is we judge ourselves much more harshly for things that we know about ourselves, if somebody else has the same issue, we wouldn't care as much. If I fall down, I'll feel embarrassed. If somebody else falls down, we don't laugh at them or shame them, we're concerned that we help them up. So this is a common thinking area that we make that perpetuates depression or anxiety. So what I ask is two things. Number one, always challenge your assumptions. Ask yourself, what is it that I'm saying to myself about the situation? What is the interpretation? What is the self-talk? And is this rational? Is this realistic? Or is there a healthier way of looking at this situation? Now, what I don't ask people to do, I don't ask people to come up with fake and happy thoughts. Now, if I screw up something and I get fired from my job, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, that's okay, everything's fine. It's not, living in a fantasy world. It's just maybe trying to be a little bit more rational and realistic. Second thing is, let's say your assumptions are correct. Let's say they're true. The example I gave of your friend not calling you back, right? It's been 3 days, your friend didn't call you back. Let's say you're right. Let's say they are angry about it. Well, then what I ask people to do is to challenge their secondaryism. So even if the thing you fear is true, are you further catastrophizing in your thought? Let's say your friend is upset with you, but now are you making the mistake of thinking that the friendship is over, that it can't be worked out? So sometimes our beliefs may be correct, but our assumptions about the consequences of that is what causes depression and anxiety. Okay? So the point is this, in summary, it's a good idea to always challenge the assumptions and interpretations you're making around any circumstances. That could be a very important component to maintaining good mental health. Okay? Second thing I'd like to talk about is the importance of relationships. If you think about, we are all different beings. We value the connections we have. We develop, we depend on the connections for our survival when we're kids. As adults, even the things we strive for, if we want success or money, at some level we have some belief that these things will bring us some interpersonal benefits. That could be the underlying motivation, whether it's respect or love, companionship. Right? That's one of the reasons we work hard or we volunteer or we earn money is because we have some belief that buying material things, having experiences will bring us interpersonal satisfaction as well. Okay? So in my experience, I think the key to mental health is to think about challenges in your relationships with people in a very different way than we often do. And what I want to get into briefly is the topic of what we call relationship dynamics. Okay? And I'm going to give some examples. Dynamics has to do with looking at what is it that's going on between people. Not what we're talking about, not what we're fighting about, not what we're arguing about or disagreeing about. It's what's happening. The things we're talking about, that's the content of the conversation, the content of the disagreement. The dynamics is what are we doing to each other. And in my experience, when people have challenges with mental health, depression, anxiety, it's because the dynamics are breaking down in our mental health. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you have a husband and a wife, and they can't agree on where to go for dinner. One wants to go to a Chinese restaurant, the other wants to go to an Italian restaurant. And they're going back and forth trying to convince each other which restaurant is better. One of them is saying, well, it's been a while since we've had Italian food, and the other one says, yeah, but I had a coupon at the Chinese restaurant. And the other one said, yeah, but parking is easier at the Italian restaurant. The other one said, yeah, but our friends really recommended the Chinese food. And they're getting all these arguments about which is a better place to eat. Okay? Then a week later, you have to decide which movie to watch on Netflix. One of them wants a comedy movie, and the other one wants an action movie. Okay? So they're arguing about which movie has a better director, which one has a better cast, which one's going to win an Oscar this year. So they're trying to convince each other what's the better movie. And then a month later, they're trying to decide where to go on vacation. One of them wants to go to Miami, the other one wants to go to New York. And they're arguing about which one is better weather, which one is easier flight, which one is cheaper, which one is more interesting, et cetera, et cetera. Now here's the thing. I'm not saying you don't have to make decisions about where to eat, or where to travel, or which movie to watch. But when people have problems, when they go through depression or anxiety, it's not because of the content. It's about what they do to each other and how they make each other feel when they're having these disagreements. And the biggest mistake, the third thing, if you want to note down on something anyway, is this is what needs to be talked about. People do not talk about what we do to each other. They talk about things and topics. Okay, should we go to New York? Should we go to Miami? This is what too many conversations in relationships are. So what I encourage people to do is to improve their relationship, is to shift the conversation and take a look at what is it that we're doing to each other that doesn't feel so good. Why am I depressed? Why am I resentful? Why am I hurt? Why am I withdrawing? Why do I feel cheating on you? Why am I getting the silent treatment? Why am I being an abusive spouse? Okay? It's because the dynamics are unhealthy. People don't get divorced or have fights or shut down or cheat because they can't agree on Miami versus New York or Italian versus Chinese food. It's because of what they do to each other. So when you start to have conversations about what we do to each other, that's when you're solving the real problem. For example, a wife might say to a husband, okay, here's the real issue. I'm feeling resentful that I'm always giving into what you want because I'm afraid of your anger. Maybe the husband says to the wife, I'm tired that every time I have a different choice than you, you always ridicule me. Or you make me feel guilty. This is a very much more powerful conversation than arguing about whether to get Chinese food tonight or whether to get Italian food tonight. A lot of couples, a lot of people in relationships, and this could be any relationship. It could be a boss, employee, colleague, brother and sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, anything. Any two people is to understand that a lot of depression and anxiety comes from unhealthy dynamics. What I encourage people to do is to really talk about what we do to each other, try to identify the theme. Okay? Some examples are feeling underappreciated, feeling like there's a power disparity, feeling like there's a lack of acknowledgement or validation around how somebody feels, and being told their feelings are wrong, their feelings are stupid, being told how to feel, being shamed for how they feel, how they think, being blamed. And I really encourage for working through issues around validation. When people feel like their feelings are not being heard or acknowledged, that's a very serious risk factor for mental health. People are likely to engage in behaviors like drinking, self-cutting, a lot of self-doubt, they question reality. Okay? So these are some things to be mindful of that I think are big triggers for depression and anxiety. So in summary, I think the dynamics are more important because they're repetitive. Okay? Today you'll argue about Chinese food versus Italian food. Tomorrow you'll argue about New York versus Miami. A month from now you'll argue about something else. 6 months from now you'll argue about a different thing. But the pattern's the same. These dynamics keep reenacting themselves. That's what takes a toll on people and causes a lot of mental health challenges. Okay? So what I encourage people to do is 3 things. Number 1, think about deeper issues that the circumstances may be reenacting. Number 2, think about what are the dynamics going on in your relationship with other people. Number 3, think about your core assumptions and thoughts. These are powerful ways to help you at least conceptualize what you need to think about to help get your mental health, your relationships back on track. I know the solutions are not always easy. I didn't give you any answers, but I think for today I wanted to give you things to think about that can help you going forward to overcome depression and anxiety. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, you can love like for really good. Thank you. I know these topics are really wide and not being touched upon in 15 minutes. I'm really sorry to plan the 15 minutes that we have, but really good topic for us to share. came back, we are doing one clear part. Kavita was like, should I cut my cut start with question and answer? But we'll give an opportunity for Kavita, but she does have valuable sources too. Okay? So we'll give Kavita, I'm sorry, I called upon your first name, you're all doctors. So if I apologize for not giving you the DR. So Kavita is she's a fellow in pulmonary critical care. Now, main thing is like she's currently enrolled in Master of Science in Maharishi Ayurvedic and Integrative Medicine. So she will give us some techniques on how to handle some of the symptoms, wrap up things that we talked about, I didn't talk about. So here,
thank you. I was going to talk a lot about what things are doing right now, some things in our daily routine, and part of that will have been an exercise or a body because we've been sitting for a while. So if everyone could stand up, I'll just lead you into some movements which you can use to exercise in the morning. If you don't already exercise, and you have your exercise, that will be part of the mission. So this is to increase circulation in different parts of the body. If you do this in the morning, maintain flexibility at a physical level. We need to know the point. Okay. So first, balance yourself on your 2 feet. The bony point of your hips, your knees should be in line with the bony point of your hips, and then your toes should be parallel facing forward. Keeping that in mind, shift your weight to your left foot, raise your right heel up, and then make circles with the right hand. So 5 times in one direction, and then reverse, and 5 times in the other direction. When you're done, put that foot down, left heel up. Now ankle rotation on the left side, and then reverse direction. So I'm not even counting right now. And now we'll just sort of roll our feet. So it's almost like walking at the same time. This is just to stretch your soles. So roughly 3 or 5 on each side. Okay. Now we'll wake up our knees, especially in the morning. That will be important. Just put a gentle bend in your knees and make small circles with your knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then reverse. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we'll break up our hips. Sometimes we're going to do that. So circles with your hips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now for a spine, I have to step away from the mic, but this is to just sort of increase the flexibility in your spine. So your posture, your legs would be in the same position, hips, knees in line, and then your feet parallel facing forwards, and then gently swing your arms one way or the other. So your entire spine from bottom to top is a very relaxed movement. Keep your arms moving. The neck follows the direction of your spine. So just loosen up the entire spine from bottom to top. Okay, now shoulders. So shoulder roll backward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Arms. 1, 2, 3. Reverse. 1, 2, 3. The other one. 1, 2, 3. Reverse. 1, 2, 3. And then now for the neck. So chin towards your chest, and then up towards the ceiling. Also think about raising your breastbone to the ceiling as you're doing this, and then bring your chin back to the breastbone. Raise up again, down, up. back to the center, now look over your right shoulder, and then left, right, left, right, left, back to the center, chin to the breastbone towards the ceiling, and then circles with your nose, small circles, so don't stress the neck. And make sure everything is not in front of the neck like this, keep the back of the neck long. So 3 or 5 in one direction, wherever it is, and then reverse, equal number in the other direction. And after that, you can sit down now and take 3 deep breaths. So breathe in through the nose and think about the air slowly in all the way down to your chest. So instead of thinking about the air coming to your chest, all the way down. And then when you breathe out your mouth. Think about releasing tension or worries. Breathe in again. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. You also got some extra oxygen in your body. Deep breaths. So that's another advantage. And then now, sit down with your feet, your knees parallel. Your feet are planted on the ground next to each other. Close your eyes. And then palms up. And just think about one thing in your life that you can be grateful about. Could be anything related to your family, some enjoyable meal you had. It could be some gift, something you bought, just having a roof over your head, water 24 hours a day. A lot of countries in the world don't have that, especially people from India over here, you all know what I'm talking about. So just one thing that you are thankful for. And then you can open your eyes and we get started. So what I'm going to talk about are based on some yoga and Ayurveda. Many of the life coaches and a lot of us when I talk about actually overlap these principles. So since the topic today is empowerment, first, what do we mean by empowerment? Right? And once we understand that, how do we become empowered? So if we look at the meaning of the word power means the ability to act or influence. So when we have the ability to make up our minds and follow that, we have the influence over ourselves. Right? This is what some of us are talking about, showing up for ourselves. So that is the power over our own self. When we have the ability to get other people to do what we want, that is now power over others. Right? So empowerment has 2 aspects. Power over ourselves and power over others. And this is an ability, right? Ability to do what I want to do, not just think about it and then not be able to do it, or the ability to influence others. And the good thing about ability versus, some natural talent is that you can develop an ability even if you don't have it. So if today you don't feel empowered, that is something that can be developed. What is the good place to start? So I am guessing a lot of people may have read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You have read the book? How many? Quite a few. It's a great book for those who haven't yet read it. But in that book, the author talks about private victory, public victory. So when he talks about the 7 habits, the first 3 habits are focused on which means developing the power over self and how that is important to being able to influence others. So before I can think about having power over my surroundings, I have to develop that power over myself. Melissa had talked about working at a very instinctive level rather than, or was that you, right? So you talk, not working at a prefrontal level. So what we want to do is start moving in that direction, and that is developing the power to influence yourself. And once you have that, then now you can project it forward. So the foundation of empowerment, first step is to develop or strengthen the ability to influence yourself. Okay, so how do we go about it? Now that's good to know. So there are many ways. I am going to focus on three things, which is the morning routine, posture, self-confidence. Some of this has already been covered. And you can think about the morning routine as a warm-up. So if I'm a sports person, I will never get onto the field without that opportunity to warm up before the actual play, right? Otherwise, first of all, I will not be at peak performance. Secondly, my likelihood of injuries increases if I'm not warmed up. Same thing if I play a musical instrument or if I'm a singer. If I just start the performance without having done the backstage warm-up, I'm going to run into trouble. So the morning routine is the warm-up for the day. And the morning routine, as your warm-up, improves your ability to then be able to handle the challenges that come your way, expected or unexpected, because you've taken certain steps to physically, mentally, emotionally prepare yourself. So this is not to simplify it and oversimplify the morning routine. I tried to cut it down to what will only take 7 to 10 minutes. If you already have a morning routine, that's great. You should follow that. This is for people who try to figure out where to start and they're like, I don't have a lot of time. Whatever you want me to do, give me 5 or 10 minutes to do it, right? So this is for that. So first thing, you wake up, you drink a glass of water. First, it hydrates you, but it's also a cleansing, internal cleansing. So just the way you take a shower, and that's external cleansing, you drink a glass of water first thing in the morning, you sort of flushing your system and providing hydration. Then the 3 minutes exercise, we just did it, right? It doesn't take too long, it's not too intense, but it increases the circulation throughout your body. Now you're increasing the blood delivery to all parts of your body. More of the oxygen, more of the nutrition being delivered to every single cell in your body. This is why people who exercise look younger, right? And stay flexible because through exercise, you increase circulation all over your body and increase the nutrition being delivered to every single cell in the body. Deep breath, many benefits, but if we just want to talk at a physical level, you get more oxygen. And of course, it also calms the mind. Then sitting down and doing the gratitude exercise, mentally you want to be in a place as you step out into your day where you're not just reacting to things, but you're grounded. And talk to any speaker or life coach, gratitude is one emotion that everyone talks about because from a place of gratitude, it's hard to react. It just helps you to know that you are in a place where you already have things in life to be thankful for. So even if other things happen that are not going in your favor, you have the foundation of there are still things working for you. So it puts you in a good mental space. Now, of course, oral hygiene, elimination, shower, all of this is part of the routine and it's like very much. I find it easier. My exercise and my meditation is usually between 15 to 20 minutes. What I do is I get up. The first thing I do is go down to my exercise room. I do yoga, so I don't get out of my PJs for that, right? I just do my exercise, I do my meditation, and then I worry about the shower and brush and the rest of it. So that's how I made it work for myself. You don't have to follow this routine, but just do it first thing in the morning. Sorry, I didn't mean to say do not follow the routine. I meant you don't have to follow the sequence. You can choose the sequence. Okay, posture. So I'll tell you a story. There's a man, every time he joins people in a place of worship, church or temple, you can choose. So anyway, he would fall asleep during prayer every single time. And the priest would kind of look at him a little bit funny. And when people would ask him, you're always sleeping, but I can't help it. I want to please God so much, and I'm trying to think of religious him because traditionally we use him all the time. But the goddess of sleep, overtakes me, and I divert my attention. And so, obviously, this comes from a Hindu tradition. We have lots of gods and gods. Anyway, the god goes to the goddess of sleep and says, why are you disturbing my devotee all the time? Because he's trying hard to offer his prayers to me, but he can't do it because you get in the way. And she says, but I can't help it. He always sits in a slouched way, and whenever there is slouchiness, I have to go there. So he invites me every time. I don't just go there. And then I heard the story, the little being told to kids. I thought it was like that's a weird story, and then I thought, oh, this is how in ancient times they would highlight the importance of posture. If you don't have the right posture, you will have low energy, which will of course be disposed to sleepiness, sluggishness. So I love that story. And it's easy to relate it to kids too. So bad posture leads to lack of energy, and as we all know, all of us have worked a lot with computers, and then we're always and we're kind of bending forward. So posture affects the energy, causes pain. Both of these cause pain itself will cause fatigue, so you have a sense of fatigue all the time, you're tired, right? What does that mean? If you're tired, now anything happens around you, you will be stressed more easily, right? So whether it's physical or mental or emotional, you will react to that stress more easily. That means you develop a low stress resilience. Now you will be exposed to all kinds of moods, but even mental health disorders. So prevention, regular exercise to keep your body stretched and moved, and also to remove the tension from the muscles and joints. And then you want to avoid sitting continuously. I think we've all heard this, so I'm going to elaborate on this too much. One thing that maybe is not talked about is days. Now, as part of ergonomic seating, we've all been told that the computer monitor should be at eye level. Right? There's a reason for that. Because our posture tends to follow our gaze. So if I'm always looking down, very soon my neck and my upper chest will fall back. But if I'm looking straight forward, then I will tend to be a little bit more balanced in my spine. So whenever you are doing activities, and especially because all of us use our phones a lot and we tend to do this a lot, try to figure out ways to avoid doing this a whole lot and to be in a posture where your gaze is at eye level, and that will put your more direct posture. And that will give you better energy. And along with that, sometimes if you've been doing this for a while, you can have this. So it helps to roll your shoulder back and put your hand on your hip and then just kind of stretch try to stretch your pecs a little bit. So hands on hip can help with that. Okay, so self-talk language, we talk a lot about it. So here are some examples of how we stop ourselves from doing things or feel like we don't have a choice. Either because we will say things like, this just won't work, what's the point of doing this? Even if it works, it won't make a difference in my life or to the circumstances. I want to do this, but I'm not ready. I can't do that. I just don't have the talent or the skill. Or I would love to do that, but I don't have the support, resources, money, or time. I don't have the choice or freedom. right? Or social support. And so, how do we, if we have a habit of thinking like that, how do we change that language? So, I'm not ready yet, I can't do that. When we say that, it may be true. Yes, we cannot do that in that moment. But every expert starts at the beginning. So the fact that you cannot do that now is simply that you cannot do that now. It doesn't mean I cannot do that. That's more of an absolute statement. But the real statement is that you don't have training. So you have to remind yourself that's how you move on at some point to become an expert. And then if you're just thinking it won't work, what's the point, etc. Another way of looking at it, and I'm just giving an example. It can be, you could think about it differently, but you can make it more positive. So for example, maybe it won't work, but whether or not it works this time, everything you do, you learn something. So it strengthens your ability for the future. And we all know that generals in a war have sometimes chosen to lose in a battle so that they can win the war. So it's strategic to let yourself fail to be able to win in the long term. And, we can't choose our circumstances. Bad things can happen. AJ had given examples of someone having a bad week could have a bunch of bad things happen. None of those are bad choices. There's nothing you can do about those circumstances. But what you can do in those circumstances, how you respond to those challenges. And different people will respond to it differently based on their mindset. So one good way to look at whatever happens is you may not have the power to choose the situation you're in, but you have the power to choose your response to the situation you're in. And that's where you want to focus. And why is it important? What is it? Because when the way we use the language, at a subconscious level, our brain does some interpretation, right? And then sometimes I've certainly been in that place where I'm like, I just seem to be very good at self-sabotage. I have a certain goal in mind, and I find myself doing things which almost makes my chances. Why do we fight? It's because at a conscious level, we're saying, I do this. But then I also keep telling myself, I don't think I'm going to achieve it. So now at the subconscious level, the subconscious brain is trying to help you. And they're like, why are you trying to reach out for that? You know that you'll never get it. So it's such a waste of time. So the subconscious mind is pulling you back. Yourself, and that is where most of the self-sabotage happens. So if you say, I can't decide, choice, oh my God, I'm very bad at decision making. That's what your subconscious brain thinks. You don't have that ability to make choices. That is how it is. So then it stops making the effort to help you in making the choice. There's no problem. Now you just like, okay, I reached the deadline, I have to make some choice, so I'm just going to pick one. But you haven't actually made a choice. You were forced into that situation. You just picked one fork on the road, you had no idea where it was leading, but you had to go one of the two, and you just randomly did one. But if you, instead of saying, I can't decide, if you have a habit of thinking, okay, I have to make a choice, I haven't made a choice yet, I'm still thinking about it. That's very different, because now your subconscious brain will be, what are the factors you need? Let me bring this to your conscious mind so that you can factor it in and make your choice, because that's what you're trying to do. But if you tell your subconscious, I can't decide, then it's like, okay, can't decide, end of story. I can't do that. Your subconscious brain reads, you don't have the ability, no need to try. End of story. But if you say, I can't do that now, if I learn, or I would have to learn, now your subconscious brain will be like, okay, what do we need to do? Do I need to watch videos? Do I need to talk to a coach? Now start looking for options. I'll never succeed, this will never work. So we get the idea. And what you could do is see what patterns you have. What are the kind of thoughts you repeat and see what you could do to replace it. And if you do this every day for about a month, it helps to shift your thought pattern. You have a certain thought habit, you develop a new we did the 3-minute exercise. So when it comes to manifesting your empowerment, the very basic actions that you can implement in your day-to-day life without too much extra effort. Morning routine, posture, your self-talk, and the 3 rules that you need to keep it simple. None of what I talk about is that you need to make any major changes. They're very simple exercises, mental and physical. And if you find yourself not being able to do it, or you did it for 2 days and then for a week, it's okay, just start. Just start again, don't beat yourself up for it, because that'll set you back. And most important, whether you do it for 2 days and quit for a week or quit for a month, never quit. One day you'll be an expert at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kavita. So we probably have a question answer that after that was talked over. Our goal for us through Peace360 is mental health, and each one of you gave a good techniques or ideas for us to help. As I said, it's a support system, and that is what our Peace360 is trying to be a support system for mental health and other concerns. So we have a good support system today. At least 3 new people, 4 new people for us to reach out to. So this is on this Zoom too. Anybody have questions? No. Can you have? Is it okay? I feel like I can pull it over and distance. You can come over here so you can start over there.
Hi, my name is Selena. I'm a pharmacist by profession. Today, I'm sorry I didn't miss the beginning, but I listened to the psychologist earlier. I just have a question regarding you mentioning something like self-avoidance, like avoiding things. I just want to get a little bit more idea. What should we be aware of? Avoiding something, what are those things that we should, so that it doesn't lead to disaster? What are the things that we should be aware of? Thank you.
Thank you. So I think to answer your question, it's probably going to be a very individual thing. I think the idea with avoidance is that we are very motivated to minimize our anxiety. Anxiety is something that's very uncomfortable. We don't want to feel the physical sensations, the thoughts, the worries, and anything we can do to reduce our anxiety is human nature to try to drift in that direction. And the idea is that sometimes when we experience something that can be embarrassing, hurtful, shameful, difficult, something that could affect our self-esteem, right? Sometimes this occurs at a very young age, okay? When our childhood we experience something very difficult, we decide that I'm never going to put myself in this situation again. So for example, let's say I'm in first grade, and I raise my hand in class and I ask a question and everybody starts laughing, okay? Maybe the lesson I learned is I'm so humiliated by everybody laughing at me that I decide that I'm never going to put myself in this position again. So I become quiet. I don't participate. I sit in the back of the class. I don't ask questions. I want to be invisible so that nobody will laugh. What happens is we carry these traits into our adulthood. Okay? Maybe we could have opportunities to participate in things, do things, and we choose not to because part of the problem with avoidance is here, at least we're not going to get laughed at or humiliated or embarrassed. But then we don't get the practice, we don't get the skills, we don't learn how to talk to people or participate or ask questions. And then what happens is we suffer consequences. So maybe what's protective of us at one time in our life causes problems later. So in terms of what people avoid, that's something that's going to be a very individual question. Some people might avoid trusting people. Maybe some people might avoid opening up to others. You have a bad experience. You share something with somebody, some deep feeling or emotion, and somebody takes advantage of that, or exploits that, or uses you. Then you learn, okay, I'm not going to be close to anybody, and you become closed off. And then maybe in the future that becomes a problem because your relationship partner complains that you never talk to me about your feelings, you never open up, I don't know what's going on with you. So things that protect us in our youth, in our past, sometimes cause problems in the future. So I can't say like what it is that you should, be on the lookout for, but just be aware of the pattern that the things that you learn to avoid protect you in the past and are now causing problems in your present, then you want to think about how can I overcome this? What's my fear? And how do I learn to expose myself to those situations so that I don't miss out on things, whatever those things may be. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have been in a lot of trying to understand this concept. Sometimes it's hard to talk with the people. Sometimes she avoid things. I'm trying to understand the psychology behind it. How can I help her? Make her more open.
Yeah, I would say the okay, yeah, thank you. Great question. I think one of the avoidance in my experience is we want to avoid shame. Shame is a very powerful emotion. Anytime we're made to feel ashamed, it's probably the lowest feeling we can experience. And when we experience shameful incidents, it kind of wakes us up and puts us on guard. We can avoid things that may elicit shame, embarrassment, humiliation, failure, anything that can make us feel down about ourselves. I'm an athlete and I don't play well. And I'm in sports, I may quit sports and not participate rather than build up my skills because I'm afraid that audience is going to bully me when I'm playing a game or my teammates are going to tease me or bully me, right? These are the early experiences we have to teach us what should we do, what should we avoid. Sometimes it can work. Somebody tells me, go play basketball and I'm only 5'7" and everybody else is 6'7", maybe it makes sense to play basketball because I'm not going to be good at it. But maybe it might not make sense to play something else, which is public speaking. Giving speech, and I don't stick with it, I don't practice it, I don't develop my skills with it, then maybe I can't share my talents with the community, or I can't be a leader, or I don't qualify for management positions in my company, or things like that. So avoidance is good, it protects us in the short term, it could hurt us in the long term. That's basically the concept of this kind of thing.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any input on that? Melissa, if you have any?
You're muted, Melissa. Start the question. So I don't want to try and take your time.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions to ask? Everybody? Sure.
My name is Deepika. My question is regarding like fasting and having food to heal the body. So you said food is something that, it should be a concept in order to provide nutrition to the body, not much of a pleasure concept, right? So I tend to eat when I'm hungry, but traditionally speaking, my mom and dad advise me to eat at the right time. Okay, in breakfast, when you're fast, right? You eat right at that time in order for your body to be healthy. And then lunchtime, and then dinner no later than, 6 or 7. We have all these topics coming up. Is it a good habit to eat when you're hungry?
So I'm glad you asked the question, and that's a very good question. So I do talk about that in terms of the routine that we follow, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But who has created this? We as humans created this to create, if we have jobs and, certain other factors, people in school, alcohol, and lunchtime. So to answer your question, I actually do believe that we should be eating only when we're hungry.
Now, provided that can get a little complicated, as you're trying to build your personal lives and stuff like that. So I actually suggest that we need to build and eat pertaining to our personal routine. So for instance, this whole breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then I'm gonna go on snacks. So the big thing I talk about is snacking. We should not be snacking. We need to have rituals where we're not eating. But my routine, I'm gonna give you an example, is I eat between 10 and 11 in the morning, and then I eat, between 4 and 5. But I created that for myself because it kind of works with my livelihood. Now, I have teenage kids and stuff like that, and it was very challenging because, I think the other problem is that as women, you want to sit down with your family and you're not eating, and they're looking at you. So I think for my kids, and now actually all of us have started eating before 5. I mean, so I'm just going to say, to answer your question, we should be eating when we're hungry. And just to kind of talk a little bit about hormones here. So we talk about insulin. If I have to give you 3 hormones that are very important, one is insulin, the other one is leptin and ghrelin. Okay? So insulin goes up when we consume food. And what that does is we have an organ called pancreas, it's purifies the pancreas, and what it does is it's like, oh, there's food in the stomach, let's go toward the food because we don't know when we're going to get food the next time. The other 2 important hormones are actually leptin and ghrelin. So ghrelin, if you think about it two ways, G for hunger, there's a G in hunger and a G for ghrelin. When you're hungry, ghrelin is secreted, and when you're full, leptin is secreted. But what has happened now is that our insulin levels are so high all the time that leptin and ghrelin never work. So we don't even know when we're hungry, we don't even know when we're full, we're just, let's have breakfast, let's have let's have lunch, let's have a little snack in between, and then let's have dinner. So you're actually doing it the way we should be doing it, is eating when we're hungry, provided that, I also say that you might want to create something for your personal reasons that would work for you. Now, in my family, my son, I have a 12-year-old and he's growing, and he wakes up in the morning and he's extremely hungry, so we get him breakfast. And so we do have a little sporadicness in our house with everybody. He has to eat, but then my 2 daughters are 15 and at 18, they don't eat till noon. So the point is, they're beginning to eat when they're hungry versus us being told that we should be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we as humans actually created that just to make it easier for ourselves, and then throwing in snacks. And I truly believe the whole snack industry came about actually in North America was when we realized that we're only eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so all these low-calorie, low-calorie snacks, how are they going to fit into our lives? And how are they going to make money? So that's when we're doing snacks, like, oh, we should be doing snacks. So I hope that answered your question. So you go, girl.
So I just wanted to add that Ayurvedic so in Ayurveda, every human being is an individual with a very unique physiology. But having said that, there are some general patterns. And based on that, our hunger level and our ability to digest the food that we have are different. So I'm going to again use a very oversimplified version of 3 main kinds of people. So you have these people who are just built with the cereal, right? Like slender bones, and it's actually very hard to gain weight. Their digestive system tends to be very irregular. They're very sensitive to routine. When they break routine, their physiology cannot handle it very well. So for them, routine is very important. Routine is important for everyone, but especially for that physiology. Then there is the physiology that has a lot of fire, meaning a lot of digestive capability. They tend to be hungry people. These are also the people, if they don't get their meals on time, become hungry. So they're the hungry people. For them, the 2 meals a day might not work so well. They might actually need more. And usually, if you observe yourself, so like Sonia was saying, it's a little bit of knowing yourself, listening to yourself. Am I the kind of person who actually feels hungry a lot? And if I just eat 5 a day, it's not going to work for me. I need 3 or even 4 meals a day. And they're able to digest it pretty fast, and they might actually have bowel movements twice a day or 3 times a day sometimes. And for them it's normal because their digestive system is just that active. And then there's the third kind of person who lives with the stocky bones, heavy bones, easy for them. They will always have a little bit of extra fat and muscle, which in the modern world is considered, having that slightly heavy build. I'm not talking overweight or obese. I'm talking about some people are naturally just heavier. They have a metabolism where they just build tissue very fast, and for them, even 1 meal is not enough. So as you're trying to figure out what it is that's needed, a little bit of a self-observation. And then if you have an expert who can guide you, but don't, again, just follow general rules, try to figure out, and every person in your family might have a slightly different methodology. So I think I'm just having a little bit.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, a lot of my clients will be like, oh, who made this choice? That doesn't apply. So I actually start off my clients where they're at. They eat 4 meals a day, continue eating 4 meals a day. But then as we go into intermittent fasting, as we go into diet action, whether they eat 3 meals a day. But yes, I think that whole mind-body is critical. What happens is we're so disconnected. As you told me your stomach is coming and you're hungry, right? So there's 2 types of hunger. There's physical hunger and emotional hunger. So physical hunger is literally ghrelin is being secreted and your stomach is telling you you're hungry. Then there's emotional hunger. And emotional hunger, A, I'm having a bad day, or B, emotional hunger is let's eat breakfast, let's have lunch, let's have snacks, because emotionally that's what we taught. So I think the key thing is that physical hunger, and I think relating to that versus living emotional. And from a physical hunger perspective, that is depending on the physiology of oneself. But we need to step back and figure out what are we and have that observation. And that's a tough one because I think awareness is something that is still, we are living unconscious lives, and we need to start becoming aware of our bodies, aware of what we're thinking, and I'm going to tell you that's going to lead to the result that we want in our lives.
I wanted to ask the strength of so when we told, have a and the sun is barely coming up. When I break down, the digestive system is not ready for food at that time. Actually, your body is not quite ready for food till about 9 or 10 earliest in the morning. And then the digestion is pretty strong around 12 to 2. So what we eat at that time, there's digestive tract. And then as the sun starts going on, your digestive power has gone down. And even in the modern world, we realize that the late dinners are not very good. So you could eat the same thing, the same meal, between 7 2, and it will be digested in a different way that if you have the exact same things at, let's say, 8 or 9 or 10 of them. And the results, the effect on your physiology would be very different depending on the timing of your food. So as a starting point, if you have to figure out your hunger cycle, just know that naturally whatever physiology you're in, your hunger and your ability to digest is probably kind of the best midday. And basically midday meaning that the sun is at its highest point is when your digestive system, because the digestion is related to fire, which is related to the sun. You can follow the sun to figure out how your physiology is working. So when the sun is resting, your physiology is resting. But don't do anything after that time. If the sun is out, your physiology is more fiery. That's the time to do the things of, mentally challenging, physically challenging, and digesting your food. And within that cycle, then figure out your basics.
Peace360 is a good book for you to read about how to cycle your food. And anybody else? Anything from your free time, Melissa?
Well, my only feedback is I'm just so proud of everybody that showed up today. Because in order to change your life, you have to step up to the plate. And I think it's just a beautiful gift you give yourself and your family by showing up today. So thank you. Thank you for giving us the platform to speak to.
My name is Sujeet. My question is for Dr. Wadra. If you could summarize the 3 points, the 3 main reasons for depression, anxiety, and you talked about relationship dynamics and people issues. And third one, and you just summarize it. Briefly, yes.
Thank you for the question. Let me just clarify one thing. There are a lot of reasons for depression. There's a lot of different perspectives, a lot of theories, everything from brain chemicals to what's going on in your gut to genetics. So it's never that simple that it's just because of this, because of that, because of that. Okay, so let me clarify that in advance. I think maybe what I was trying to say was that from the perspective of a psychologist, when you work with clients, these are the things that seem to come up the most in your work. So I want to make that distinction, okay? So just to summarize, in my experience, the things that seem to be affect the people the most are your thought patterns, your intentions, your beliefs, which I think we all touched on in different forms, okay? Second thing is your relationship dynamics, how things seem to be going between you and other people, and more in terms of what's actually happening and what you're experiencing with each other, right? And then the third thing would be the idea. Well, I talked about the now I'm blanking here. Yeah, that's what I was referring to. This is how you interpret the circumstances, what kind of thought process you have, and how that affects your emotions, which ultimately will affect your behaviors, whether or not those behaviors are. But it's a lot more complicated than that. There's so many other things, hormonal factors, genetic factors, health issues. There could be cultural factors. There could be economic factors as well, family background and all that. Sorry, the other thing, the deeper issue that when you're struggling with the circumstance, is there something about the circumstance that resembles something that maybe you struggled with in the past? And we don't always have awareness of that. We tend to focus on what's happening in the present without really understanding does this have some significance for what our life story is, what our life challenges is. So these are just things to think about if you're struggling with mental health. To help you to maybe at least define the problem, or understand the problem in a way that might be a little bit different than we normally tend to think. Did I answer your question? Yes.
Do we have anybody in Zoom that?
I just said no.
No. Please go. First off, I'd like to thank and thanks to the amazing work here. I'm Melissa, and Melissa, from many experience perspective, it is so important for us women in general, everybody. And really to that message perspective, then, we tend to feel really hard for ourselves, very much agree. And it obviously is our thoughts, but when you invent really hard, it is so difficult to get out of those, advertising thoughts and changing our thought process to the healthy lifestyle. Because everything has the knowledge of what the right thing to do. But how can we actually try to get out of that body and actually try to change your thoughts in that moment? And I talk about the prefrontal cortex, and I believe almost everybody here talks about the prefrontal cortex. And not taking into a pyramid brain and trying to clear us and create a relation to the healthier and not the healthier. So it's no thing. Something you can share with us, to probably get us out of that soul and bring us to the, more healthy.
Was that question posed to me, Supriya?
Yeah.
Okay. Do me a favor, ma'am, whatever camera is facing the room is up to the ceiling, so if I could see you, there we go, perfect. No, down. No, there. Thank you. I love the question, and you're right, because when you can have pity parties, actually certain men, the fastest way to shift, there you are. The fastest way typically to shift out of a pity party when we go down that cycle, when we get into our loop, is easiest through moving your body. So think of it in terms when we get depressed, we tend to, when we have our pity party, we'll go sit on the couch in a certain position, or we'll lay on the bed in the fetal position, or we will have a body experience that gets us into that state. So the first way out of that, the fastest way, and one of the things that I would have my clients do is create a playlist of awesome. And it's a song playlist of music that elevates you, that reminds you of good times, that takes you to a really happy place. Music will get you there very quickly. Moving your body is second to that. The third thing, and one of the speakers, I don't remember which one, gratitude practice is huge, because gratitude and fear do not exist simultaneously. And so in the same space, you can't be grateful and depressed at the same moment in time. So a gratitude practice is huge, or if you struggle with having a loop like that, really try to shift how you process your emotions and start with gratitude. So my clients have triggers throughout the day. They have a gratitude time when the alarm goes off. They go through 10 things they're grateful for. When they get in the car and they turn the key over, they have 10 things they're grateful for. So they set up a practice that helps them shift more subconsciously, but there's an intention. So they know that these triggers throughout the day bring them back to what's right. There's a quote that I love, and it's that what's right and what's wrong are always available. We've been hardwired to process through what's wrong first. And so to change the habit, if you're prone to pity parties, try to start moving your focus to creating a really great day, a really great focus. And you can support it with music, with gratitude, with meditation, with exercise, dance. Anything that can shift your physiology first, then look at what you're focused on. If you're focused on all the problems, you're going to be surprised. If you're focused on how your partner never does the things right for you, you're going to hate them. So you can change that quickly by choosing what you focus on first, and that will oftentimes help you shift. If those things don't work, then it's worthy at that point to bring in someone that can help you shift. A coach, a therapist, a pastor, whatever it looks like for you. But it's definitely something we have more control over as women than we've been taught. Our cycle gave us permission to be emotional wrecked. Oh, she's like that because she's on her period. Oh, she's like that because she's in menopause. And so we've been given somewhat carte blanche to be emotional train wrecks. And it's my hallucination that we don't have to do that. There's a lot we can do to manage that more effectively. So thank you for the question. I hope that helps.
Watch and myself and others and go back to your especially from when I take for one for my favorite, because we totally all understand my favorite products.
Well, thank you.
And I also wanted to say what you said, what goes wrong. So it's interesting because I tell my clients, we actually, as you said, we have a negativity bias. So this helped us in, as, evolution. Like if we saw a tiger, we're not going to be like, if we look at a tiger, obviously we have, our cortisol goes up, fight, flight, or freeze. So that was a protective mechanism. But our brain has actually adapted that way. So we're always thinking of harm and a negative thing versus positive. And as Melissa and even, Kavita alluded to, Grateful Journal is literally, as Melissa mentioned, you can't have both of those emotions at the same time. Sometimes I tell my clients, what gives you pleasure that's net positive, and, obviously sometimes you just can't stop and start going out for a walk. But keeping that in mind, what was mentioned is that having that grateful journal or even thinking about 5 things will literally shift that. Now, again, what I could also mention, I think that we can't go from complete negativity bias to toxic positivity. Like, you can't go from like, well, this, you just got fired to, wow, this is such a great day, and, obviously, so, and so there's something that I learned that I call bridge stuff. And see, what our brain wants to do is we want to ruminate. We want to, like, if something is going on, you lost your job, you just want to ruminate how the world affects and everything. It's just you want to ruminate and stay there and fix. Because it's comforting, if you've gone through a traumatic experience and it's comforting being there. And you know what? Sometimes you just need to be there because you need to process those emotions. So you've lost, someone has lost their job. It feels you feel rejected, you feel upset, and you need to feel that. So how does that feel in your body? And I think that is key. But then, okay, we don't want to, and then that's where I think I just brought up the fact that, certainly, what are these tools? So we feel that, we process it. Now, how do we slip out of it? How do we get to that next level? You can't go from being rejected to upset to, well, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and, I'm going to go find the best job ever because you're still feeling those, processing those emotions. So every person will take some time to process those emotions. And some people may take a little longer. But what can we create as opposed to a bridge spot? So you can, so let's say the circumstances someone got fired. You may think, I'm never going to find a job. That is your thought. That's the circumstance. So I'm never going to find. Your bridge spot could be, you can find a job tomorrow, maybe in a week. So then you're kind of in a little better place. And then, a week comes by, you still haven't found a job. It could take a month. So just creating those bridge spots to get where you want to. Because it is hard to go from like 0 to 180, from those things. So I just wanted to add to that.
Thank you, Sonia. I think there's one question on the tube, right?
Yes.
Do you want to ask that?
Sure. It is from a woman, so how does the gut health affect brain and overall health?
Who wants to take that?
So that's a very broad question. I will try to break it down in simple ways. So one is gut health in terms of what we're eating. Whatever we eat, the quality of the food is one thing. But it's going to become also one quality. But once you've eaten it, your gut breaks that down to the basic part. And then looks at the basic part and says what needs to go in, what is needed by the body, and what is waste. So it discriminates between the useful and not useful part, absorbs the useful part, and then throws the not useful or indigestible part out of the system. So one, at a physical level, that has the way it would affect you, and if your gut is not working well, it loses that power to maybe break it down completely or to discriminate between useful and not useful, to keep out what is harmful for the body and not harmful things get absorbed along with the useful things, or nothing gets absorbed, so you're not getting nutrition. For some people, they eat, but it's not getting absorbed, what comes out, and they're malnutrition. So that's one element of that. The other part is that the gut has a nervous system of its own, and that nervous system interacts with our brain. So the two, so your mood and your state of mental well-being is affected by how the nerves in the gut are working, and that is also affected by what we eat and our daily routines and whether we're sleep deprived or not. So all of these aspects of physiology interact with each other. So our mental health is dependent on gut health in that way. The other thing is that there are tons of microbes in our gut. And actually, more and more in the modern world, it's not clear who's the real master. Is it the bacteria in the gut or in our brain? Because, again, depending on the kind of microbes we have, even our mental states are affected. And then we choose what microbes we're feeding and what microbes we are in a way starving, depending on the kind of foods that we choose to put in our diet. So I didn't know a better way to explain that.
So we used to think it was one way, you're going this way, but I like how exactly, so it's actually bi-directional. So your brain and your gut health are literally interdependent now. We literally used to think that like one way our body and other two separate. And yes, science is actually going into the gut microbiome. You know, with the neurons that are actually, you know, we have just as many neurons in our gut as we have in our brain. And actually, I think it's more now, but then I think that bi-directional. And that is very, very important because, and you'll notice, you know, when we talk about it, the gut instinct, you know, we always talk about it. So if you think about it, and how I think about it, when we think more, when we think from our gut, actually will think from our gut, but you will get an instinct. You will like, well, something isn't right. You know, sometimes your brain kind of like, let's go with your brain. Like, no, rationalize and stuff like that. But we always say go with our gut instinct. And hey, you know what? If we can give this gut healthy food to think it would do what it needs to do better, why not? So I think that bi-directional is key.
You guys are second way.
Yes.
Provide talking about microbes that we have. The big one is that depression.
Yeah.
People transplant is another one that using it to treat depression. That's kind of talking about what I said. So it's a different topic. Okay. And I think we should be able to wrap it up. We are about an hour behind. And I'll just pass it on to Josh for a thank you note.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you everyone that came today, and that's on the live stream or the Zoom as well. And just a round of applause for all of our speakers. Very, very lovely job. We do have a card and a t-shirt and a pin for you. Thank you as well. And seriously, even for myself, listening to all of you, have very unique perspective, each one of you, and at the same time, I recognize themes across each speaker, where it's hard, difficult situations that you're going through, but at the same time, you have the ability to make those changes. You have resources, and you have been able to get us all very well resources and ideas. I know for myself, I was constantly listening this down. So I hope that you are all able to get something out of this. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.